Hello and welcome everybody. We are here on our live Q&A episode of our podcast. We do this once a month where we just answer questions here with our audience, also questions that have been emailed in and as well as questions that you have sent in via direct message on our social media. So we always love this episode just because it gives space to be able to go into questions that you might need for support, either as a new Reiki person, as a Reiki practitioner, or even as an experienced Reiki teacher. Sometimes things come up, and it's helpful to have somebody to ask these questions of. I know for me, as I've been in this journey for the last 10 years, something comes up and I'm like, hey, Colleen. And she had that as well, with her mentors. And so I know that it's a helpful space to have. So I am here with Danny,
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
and Colleen is still on vacation today. We record this the Wednesday before it's released on Mondays. So she's still on vacation today. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm actually going to go into the invocation pretty quickly. So full transparency, I have had days where I felt better, but the invocation and bringing in the Reiki energy is always helpful for those kinds of things. So just so you know, when you have those times when maybe you're teaching or maybe you have clients or something like that, um, and you are not feeling that well, that is when the Reiki energy can really come in and support you and help. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go into the invocation right away. I've just been feeling this morning that a lot of grounding is needed right now. So I think that's how the invocation is going to come out. It's probably not going to be that long, but if you would like to get comfortable, you can go ahead and do so now. I'm going to turn off my video and then we'll do the invocation. So close your eyes and just allow them to soften. As you find yourself in a comfortable position, you might be sitting with your feet flat on the floor or lying down with your arms and legs gently relaxed. Take a deep breath in and slowly exhale. Bring your attention to your breath and feel the natural rhythm of your inhale and exhale, like the waves of the ocean, continually flowing and cycling in and out. And with each breath, invite yourself to arrive fully in this moment. Now place your hands in Gasho, just two hands coming together at your heart. If you're driving or listening to this on your walk, you can just imagine the energy of Gasho is right here in front of your heart space. And now invite Reiki. Say yes to Reiki's invitation as it begins to flow through your hands. And you can say silently or aloud, I invite Reiki. I I invite this energy of love and wisdom. I invite my own highest self, my guides, and the consciousness of the earth to be with me. Place your hands comfortably on your body now and give yourself Reiki or receive Reiki. And take a moment to notice the subtle shift as Reiki flows. Feel the warmth or the coolness or any other sensations. The light, the presence. And now bring your awareness to the base of your spine, to your root. And imagine roots extending from you deep into the earth. As you see them spreading wide and strong, feel them weaving through the soil and the rock, the waters, connecting you to the deep, steady heartbeat of the planet. And with every exhale, release anything that feels heavy or unsteady into the earth. The earth knows how to hold it, how to transform it. And with every inhale, draw in stability, stability of the earth underneath you. As you draw in nourishment from the earth, who nourishes our bodies and mind and spirit. As you feel the strength of the ground beneath you. And as you say to yourself silently or even aloud, I am grounded. I am supported. I am safe. As you notice Reiki flowing down these roots, as you see the energy filling the earth below you with light and love and honoring the sacredness of this connection. And the light of Reiki flowing down through the top of your head. And into your full body, all the way down to your feet. And now the energy of the earth rises up through your roots. So you let it move slowly and gently into your feet, and into your legs, and into your hips and lower back. So you feel its steady and calm presence filling your body. So you let it soothe you, you let it settle you. Now bring your attention to your belly. You can place a hand there if you would like. So you breathe into this space, inviting Reiki to fill your center, your center of grounded power, of balance. So you say to yourself silently or aloud, I stand in my center. I am balanced. I am present. And feel Reiki flowing through your whole body now, filling every cell with peace, allowing your shoulders to soften, your jaw to relax, your mind to quiet. When the thoughts arise, you just let them drift by like leaves on water, returning to your breath like the waves on the ocean. Returning to your roots, returning to Reiki, holding you in safety and care. And now, as you imagine, gathering this energy in your heart, feeling your heart expand, warm and bright, allowing this grounded light to be something that you carry with you beyond this moment. And as your guides are here, the ascended ones are here with unconditional love, sharing with you, supporting you in this process. And so now you say silently to yourself or aloud, just for today, I will not worry. Just for today, I will not anger. Just for today, I will be grateful. Just for today, I will be devoted to my work. And just for today, I will be kind and compassionate to myself and to others. Thank you, Reiki. Thank you, guides and teachers. Thank you, Earth. I am grounded. I am present. I am grateful. And so now you can take a few more slow, deep breaths. So you feel your body. You feel the Reiki energy flowing through your body. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, bringing this grounded presence with you into the rest of your day. Thank you. And so it is. So you can come fully back into the room now. Okay. Yeah, thank you, everybody. It's interesting. I've had in my sessions and just in the other things that that lens or of grounding has really been present. I think we really need it right now. It's very important for everything that's happening in the world. A lot of times, what is helpful in those time frames is that grounding, connecting back into the earth. And sometimes, as our schedules and busy lives and things like that, it's hard to get into nature. If we live in cities, it can be hard to get into nature. And so, just that reminder that, well, cities are nature, right, as well, but it's putting your feet on the earth that can be challenging. And um, Reiki helps us with that. Um, and so when we can't find ourselves physically able to do that, we certainly can have Reiki help us come in to do that. And I'll tell you, having needed to work through health issues, having needed to work through personal life issues, the only way I got back or I got through it when I wasn't feeling physically good or I wasn't feeling emotionally good is bringing in the Reiki energy to help support and be kind of that backbone of everything. So if you find yourself in those positions, but we still have life to do, we still have work and we still have caretaking in the different ways that we might have caretaking. Know that Reiki energy can come in and help support during that time frame, can help you to do those things. It gives you that strength, it gives you that power. Even if before and after you need to rest, Reiki can help you in that moment. So just a little tip with it and a reminder because some of you already know, or a lot of you already know that, but sometimes we forget that. So yeah, bringing in that Reiki energy helps to support us in a variety of ways. Also, with this idea that we need grounding when things are very uh, electric out there, when things feel like, to me, there's just this kind of constant buzzing right now, which can be really challenging. One of the things that is really helpful for that when we are feeling really unstable, one of the things that is really helpful for that is grounding. And there are a variety of ways that you can do grounding work. You don't necessarily need Reiki energy to help you ground. It's super helpful, but there's a lot of grounding practices, a lot of grounding exercises that people do that aren't attuned to Reiki. One of the easiest ways is just simply touching earth, is simply going out and putting your feet on the earth because we are electric beings. We are energetic beings. The earth is an energetic being. And the way that I picture it is like when you plug a plug into a wall, it has that grounding plug, right? And it needs that to ground. And that's the way that I think of it as us. And so when we are on the earth, when we're touching the earth, that energy works in the same way. It gets discharged into the earth. And so it's not always possible to stand barefoot on the earth for a variety of reasons, especially depending on what season you're in. If there's snow on the ground, some people can do that. It's harder for some than others. I know specific training for some of you that have done that kind of training. But in that case, you can just touch earth. So grab a branch of a tree, put your hand on a tree trunk, things like that that go into the earth to help discharge that energy. Crystals can help it. Selenite is one of the ones that is commonly used for grounding, kind of taking the selenite, which is a conductor, and putting it onto the earth or into the earth or on a plant or a tree or something like that, that can help. And then, of course, Reiki can help. So that intention of Reiki, if those roots going down into the earth and bringing that energy and putting it into the earth as well. So when you're feeling that kind of buzzing energy, I'm doing emotion, but most people listen rather than watch this. So I'm kind of doing this buzzing motion with my hands. When you're feeling that way, grounding is super helpful. And the environment that we live in can contribute to that, right? So we have um we have a lot going on. Obviously, we all know that. We have a lot of planetary movements right now that people are feeling, whether you consciously know that or not. All of that can really contribute. And when you're sensitive, and I think so many people that come into Reiki are sensitive, it's part of the reason that we're called to it. When you're sensitive, that those practices, you feel that, right? You feel that within your body, even if you don't know what it is, you feel it within your body. And um, that's like a signal to you that, like, oh, okay, grounding can really help just to come back into that calming that nervous system, right? Bringing those nerves back down, bringing that parasympathetic nervous system back up, calming that sympathetic nervous system. All of those things that can help us to feel calmer in our body, which helps us feel calmer in our mind. And we don't have to necessarily work so hard at doing that. We can ask for Reiki for assistance. We can ask for Earth for the assistance. And we can have these simple practices that can really start to help us with that. With the vagus nerve, which is that nerve that runs from the base of our head, the base of our skull, it runs through our ears, through our eyes, through our heart and down to the base of our root. That vagus nerve, and practices to calm that vagus nerve is also really helpful. We did a podcast with Ann Baldwin, PhD. So we've had her on the podcast a lot because she has been really integral in in Reiki research. She's been the president of the Center for Reiki Research in the past and is still really involved with that. And she's written multiple books now, and one of the books is on Reiki research. Her newest book is about the vagus nerve and how Reiki can help calm that, or you can just help calm that on your own. And so when we had her on the podcast, we went through a few exercises that are very, very easy to do, to help you calm that vagus nerve. And that's another practice that can help you to feel more grounded and help that nervous system to just calm down a little bit. And when we're in that state, that's when we can kind of think more clearly, see more clearly, navigate our life from a greater place of wellness, feel better, all of those things. And when we have this outside influence, we need those tools to help us, but they can be very, very simple. We can do them in a few minutes. So I also encourage you to go back and listen to that episode, because there's just a few short, simple practices within that. All right. So let's go ahead now and get into some questions. So the first question from Delana is, do you have a quick elevator pitch type of answer for how Holy Fire Reiki and World Peace got added to the Reiki energy? I find myself getting into a long answer and would like to shorten it. Thank you. So this is a really great question. We do have elevator pitches, which you might already know. I just want to say this in case people don't know. We have a short elevator pitch on our website. So if you go to ReikiLifestyle.com, we have the tabs at the top on how to navigate our website. And on that, we have a resource tab. And if you go down to free downloads, we have a bunch of things that you can download. And one of those things is an elevator pitch. And so we have a short one, a slightly longer one, and then we have one that's adapted for medical and scientific purposes. And so Danny, I saw you put it in the chat. Can you write down that we want to put that in the show notes for those people that are just listening? Okay, thank you. But that's where you can find it, is in our free downloads and our resources tabs. But Delane, I know that your question is slightly different than that, about a quick elevator pitch type of answer for how Holy Fire and World Peace got added to this. And honestly, as I was reading that question, I was like, I think how I explain this is also a bit long-winded. So I'm a long-winded person. So sometimes that can be challenging for me. The slightly longer reason is, and we did an episode with William Rand, and he talked about the history of Holy Fire. Generally speaking, one of the guidances of even back to Usui Sensei, there is a historic precedent to this, that Reiki was meant to be developed. And you see that in a lot of different lineages, that there's a bunch of different lineages of Reiki. There's all of these, gosh, all the names are escaping me now. The Sui Tibetan, we have Holy Fire, we have Rainbow Reiki, we have Shinpinen Reiki, we have, oh gosh, sorry. There's that brain today that's not working. There's a lot of them. So, and all of these different lineages have been guided to develop Reiki slightly differently. Now we have the Reiki energy, and this is one of the things to understand. And I know this is long-winded. I'm going to try to get to a summary for you. We have what is the Reiki energy, and the Reiki energy is pure from the source of consciousness, right? We have this understanding that the Reiki energy is outside of any of these practices that we might have, any of these lineages that we might have. And um and so the Reiki energy is aside from all of that. Then, as humans, we have developed these different systems, these different techniques to help us as humans to connect into the Reiki energy. And one of the things to understand is that we come from all different cultures, all different belief systems, from the East to the West, from different time periods. And a lot of times, as humans, we need help to be able to connect into the Reiki energy. It's not to say that that is necessary. Some people easily connect into the Reiki energy, but sometimes our own minds need that assistance with it. And so these tools and techniques have been developed to assist us with that. And this is my own perception of it as to a part of the reason why we have all of these different lineages, all of this different development of it is because we all have different requirements of that. Some of us need the very disciplined version of how we connect into the Reiki energy. Some of us need the very spiritual version of how we connect into the Reiki energy, maybe even a little bit more free flowing or freedom in the way that we connect into it. Some of us need the very traditional versions of how to connect into the Reiki energy. So there's a lot of different needs that we all have. And part of one of the things that's so beautiful about Reiki energy is that it requires no spiritual belief system. And I think that because of that, that is a part of the reason that it has developed in all of these different ways, because it's allowing us to um connect in a very in what's most powerful for us with it. And you'll see that, like, some people will take a Reiki class and they're connected into it, but then they have a calling to take it with a different lineage, and that connects even more into it, right? And it's like, oh, this is what I needed this whole time. And because of these practices, these tools and techniques, that this is what is connecting me even more deeper into the Reiki energy and making my practice feel even deeper for me, helping with my healing, helping with my empowerment, all of those different things that Reiki provides to us. So, I know that that is not the answer to your question because you are looking for a short elevator pitch with it. And if I'm honest, I might have to think about this a little bit more. But essentially, what I would say is if somebody was to ask me that question, because with Holy Fire, what happened with that is that it was a spontaneous download as this new development within the energy came in. There's a new attunement style with why it came in. And there's a lot of reasons as to what that energy showed William. Um, William and Colleen worked on Holy Fire 3 together. The world peace was a part of, I was a part of that as far as like the back end part of stuff with it and developing the online part of it, along with Colleen and William, obviously. Um, and a part of those things were to the attunement shift was a big part of that. The attunement shift of removing the intermediary, the teacher, through that attunement process to allow the student to connect directly to the Reiki energy without that intermediary of the teacher. Because in the traditional attunements, the energy comes through the teacher and to the student, and the teacher is helping with that initiation and placing it into the student. And with the Holy Fire, it's the guided meditation and then the students in their own inner experience and connecting directly to the energy. So it's taking out that intermediary. So there's several reasons, I mean, I guess infinite reasons why this showed what the purpose of this was at the time, over time, why it showed this. One of the biggest reasons is to remove that intermediary, to allow us connect in directly to the energy. And what that is doing is that we have seen with it is that it's helping to for us as people to release that outer authority of how this should all be done and bringing us into our own inner authority about how we experience the energy. Because that's a part of what is happening right now in our society in general, releasing that outer authority and bringing us into our own inner authority and our own inner truth. We don't have that, okay, it should be this way, this way, this way, which has been done in this culture for eons, right? With religion and things like that. The only way to get to source is through the word of somebody else. And now what it is doing is helping us to connect in through our own word, through our own inner connection. And so that's a piece of it. The other piece that wasn't known at the time was this online component that um that the physical attunements, they are done online as well. That teaching was done online as well, but the holy fire attunements was really what showed it and what showed that it would be possible to do this and do Reiki online with it. And because of the style of attunement, that was showing the possibility that of teaching Reiki online because that had to be adapted. Again, Reiki developed when the pandemic hit because we couldn't travel, teaching in person wasn't realistic. There's a lot of different reasons as to why that online component came in and was very important during that time. And the Reiki energy showed that. And when you go back and look, there is like this historical trail of to why that the energy knew that that was needed and was going to be needed. So for a short elevator pitch is, I would say, if somebody was asking and I needed to say it shortly, and this is just off the cuff, so I would probably even develop it from here, is I would say that these different aspects of holy fire and after came in because Reiki is was meant to always to from back in what Yusui Sensei said, to be developed in different ways. And there's a historical basis through Hayashi, through Takata, through since then as well. So there's a historical basis for that. And so holy fire came in for a lot of different reasons. One of one of the reasons was for the attunement shift. And there's a lot of different reasons that I could get into on why that is the case. Um, and that's the true with the world peace. It was what was needed at the time for historical reasons. It was what was needed at the time. And the Reiki energy is what came in and guided that process. And I would also probably add in that there's a lot of different lineages that have developed Reiki in its own way, in their own way. There's a lot of different people that teach a lot of different tools and techniques to bring the Reiki to the people. And if you go to different countries, you go to different cultures, the way that they teach the Reiki energy and the tools that they teach and the techniques that they teach fit into their belief systems, into their cultures, into the way that they do things. And that is also a part of the systems of the Reiki energy. And holy fire is no different than that. It's just a system to help people connect into the Reiki energy. So I hope that is short enough. If you just take that end part, that's maybe a paragraph um, in it. And I know that I explained it longer than that, but I sometimes think that the context of all of it is helpful to be able to get to that shortened part of it. And I hope that also answers your question to a degree. If you have any follow-ups, you can certainly put it in the chat. I see Danny has raised her hand as well to contribute to this conversation. And so, yeah, that's how I would think that I would explain it. Go ahead, Danny.
Well, I quickly just had some assistance with chat a little bit, and this is what it came up with, and it might be helpful. Holy Fire Reiki is a modern, powerful form of Reiki that comes directly from the higher source of consciousness. It heals deeply, empowers spiritual growth, and feels incredibly peaceful and loving. World Peace Reiki is its latest evolution, focused on creating inner peace that radiates outward to help heal the world. Together, they help us connect with our true self while contributing to the global harmony.
There you go. I love it. And that is a part of the reason why chat is helpful.
Because
And
it's
Danny
a
went ahead and put that in the chat.
yeah, it's a yeah, we can talk and talk and talk. And the elevator speech, I'm like, let's just get direct. So
Yeah, and
I
it's
kind of
some
changed it a little bit, but I thought it did pretty good.
yeah, yeah. Well, that was the thing. It's like, well, if I'm going to do an elevator pitch, I probably would take all of those words and the transcript of that and put it into chat and ask it to summarize for us. So, um, but it's a good question as well, and maybe something that we should add to our elevator pitches because we are Holy Fire Reiki practitioners. And it is, people do ask that question. It's a common question. So, yeah, thank you. And related to this, somebody asked in the chat, Rainbow Reiki question mark. Yeah, Rainbow Reiki is the lineage by Walter Lubeck. So you can just Google that and Google him. We had him on the podcast as well at some point, and he explained his lineage and tools and techniques from Rainbow Reiki as well. So, yeah. All right. Well, are there any other questions, Danny, that you have from here?
Yeah, it's very ironic because one of my first questions was how do you ground yourself? And you talked
Oh,
about that in the beginning. It's really funny.
that
Um,
is funny. It's been so prevalent, at least for me, I mean, pretty much all of my sessions have been needing a lot of grounding.
yeah,
So I'm not surprised that it came through that way.
yeah, and just your invocation really, like, I didn't know that I needed grounding until after the invocation. I'm like, wow, I feel really balanced now. Um, let's see. So Colin has a question. How do you use the tree of life symbol, which is an animal Reiki symbol? How do you use the tree of life symbol in a human session? Do you use it all the time, whenever you feel like it, or for certain issues?
All of the above. In my invocations with sessions, I um, call in the Tree of Life the Tree of Life symbol as just a part of when I activate my Reiki symbols. So it's something that I use in all of my sessions, even in human sessions. Um, so there's a lot of different qualities that the Tree of Life symbol has. And as Danny said, that's the symbol that is a part of the attunement for animal Reiki. We're able to say it out loud. We call it the Tree of Life Animal Reiki energy. And so yeah, I use it in my human sessions all the time. Um, Grounding is one of them. It's a very grounding energy. It's a very grounding symbol. It's also very gentle. That's part of the reason that we see um, animals respond to it, where sometimes not all animals will respond to Reiki energy, human Reiki energy. Lots of people have animal Reiki practices with um, just their regular Reiki, and that's beautiful. And you don't need this animal Reiki lineage or symbol or energy to have a very beautiful animal Reiki practice. So I will say that first. Um, but with the Tree of Life symbol, one of the things that it does is that it is receiving from above and it's receiving from below, right? It receives from its leaves, its branches, it receives from its roots, from the earth. And so it helps us to unify our divine self and our human self. It helps us to bring in that love of our own human nature. That can be really challenging right now. It can be really challenging with all of the different things that we experience online, the different things from across the world that we see online, the duality of this planet can really help us to move into a greater level of healing and understanding about that for ourselves because we can really dislike human nature. We can really dislike our own human nature. And that can cause a lot of challenges in our lives. It can cause limiting beliefs and it can cause blockages. Um, and so that is one of those things that the tree of life really helps with. So I find that it comes in those cases when we really need to move into more love of our humanness and our human nature. So that's one thing that it does. Um, I already talked about the grounding aspect of it. Of course, it's very grounding. And it also helps us when we need accelerated rest. That's another thing that the Tree of Life does for us. It brings in accelerated rest. Um, when we just can't necessarily like move through the weariness that we might be feeling of the world, we can bring in the Tree of Life. We have an experience in the Animal Reiki class that is rest and receive in the tree of life. And that's where we crawl into a hole within the tree and just receive from the tree. And it helps us in that accelerated rest. So that's another way that um, I use the tree of life. I also, as far as like when I use it, use it as a part of my preparations always. It helps me. It's one of my sacred symbols. I call in all of my symbols. So all the way through Karuna Reiki, I am going to call in all of my symbols before a session. That's just a part of my preparations. It's a part of my own invocations. If I'm doing an invocation with a client that I know is attuned, I will, even do it, bring them in as a part of our invocations. If they're not attuned, I still bring them in, but I bring the qualities of the symbols in rather than, say the symbols themselves. And so it's always a part of my preparations. However, I will bring in the symbol, I will bring in the tree of life itself as how I experience it from the experience within the animal Reiki classes. I will bring in the tree of life itself in these different instances when I know that there are these different healings that the person needs, just as what I'm going to use any of the other symbols. So in the case where I know somebody needs the power symbol, in the case where I know somebody needs the mental emotional symbol, so I might bring that in even extra into a symbol. The tree of life is the same. So I'm going to do the same thing and it has its different qualities that the person might need based on my intuition or based on my like what the journey is showing me about the Reiki energy, or based on something that was said in the interview that gives me an indication that I need to bring in this tree of life symbol for the person. So there's a lot of different reasons why I might bring it in and different qualities that the tree of life carries that I might bring it in. But that's just going to be on an individual basis as to why I might bring it in extra than what I just do for my preparations. The gentleness of it is really a beautiful piece, the power, but the gentleness of it is a really beautiful piece. And then, of course, that connection into the earth with it. And a lot of times, actually, as I'm saying that, a lot of times the connection to the earth might be easy, the connection to the divine might be easy, and it's bringing those two together, unifying those two together, that can feel hard. How does that work together? And that part can feel hard. And so that's another place that the tree of life can really help us to experience that within ourselves and bring us here onto this planet, bring us here in that presence as well, and into the cycles and the rhythms of the earth. So, Danny, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, use the Tree of Life in my human sessions every time because I kind of end my sessions with that roots and the flexibility up top and then stable roots at the bottom. So every session, I love it. It's very grounding. So we have a next question. It
I
actually has to do with Animal Reiki. Do you want me to go
Okay, cool.
on?
And I have one too that I just remembered that
Uh,
I was DM'd. So let's go to your question. It's also related to Animal Reiki.
okay. How do I do a distance Animal Reiki session over video? What if the animal walks away? Do
Do
you
you want to
still
go ahead
follow?
and start with this?
Sure. And do you still charge full amount? So for me, I do animal Reiki sessions over video, like I do a human session. And sometimes I even go to a person's farm or whatever, and it's a distance session because I don't get into the corral or something with the horse. So it is a distance session there too. I do charge the same, and I let the caregiver know that sometimes the animal will walk away or not, turn their back, or just like if I'm doing a video session, usually if it's a cat, for instance, they have the cat and they have their camera on it and they're following it all around. I'm like, don't do that. I mean, if you want to put the cat on the video when we start, that's fine. But it will probably get up or walk around or go clean itself or go eat and drink, and that's fine. Because I imbue it into the room too. So I just don't worry about it. I It's like a person too, like a human Reiki distance session. They could fall asleep in the first 3 minutes and they're just sleeping the whole time. And even when I'm done with the session, they're still sleeping. And so before the session, I'll say, if you fall asleep, we can talk later. So I just don't worry about it. I think Reiki knows what to do. So I just, and sometimes I don't go on video. Sometimes they send me a picture. And so I just do a session with a picture.
Yeah, I would only add that if you get the feeling that it's a no, and again, as Danny
Oh,
said, just because they walk away does not mean it's a no. It's pretty common for animals to, that's why we call it Reiki in motion. It's pretty common for animals to move around, and we allow them as practitioners, other than for safety reasons. We allow them to have that freedom to move around, just like you wouldn't have a person that you're requiring. I mean, we get up on the table and we have that choice, but we wouldn't require them to like have to be on that table and not move, right? Now things like horses being on a lead rope, that's a pretty your horses are used to that. So it's not like you can't have that, or if a dog needs to be in a crate because they're more comfortable or there's a safety reason for that. There's exceptions to this rule. It's not like this is always this way and there's no exceptions to it. Some dogs need to have muzzles for safety reasons, and just because they have a muzzle and need a muzzle to be around a person does not mean that they're not deserving of Reiki. Those are times also where Reiki can really help. So that's again when we have to release our projections and our stories around that as practitioners. But it is also why we have Reiki in motion. And we have three priorities. We have safety, consent, and observation. And then it could even be the fourth priority that we have Reiki in motion, where animals are allowed to come in and out of the session, because that's just what animals are and what they need. And so, as Danny said, like if a cat's moving around the room, if a dog's going in and out, it's not always a no, and especially on video. For me, it's helpful to see what the animal looks like. So whether that's a picture, or whether I'm able to see them for a second, that's okay. And that's helpful for me if possible. It's not a requirement with it. Um, but that's okay. After that point, I don't need to be seeing the animal 100% of the time. A horse might be in a stall and then walk out to their paddock. That's pretty common as well. They might come back in, they might not. And that's okay. Alpacas, another one that like they're going to move around. That's a reality of their species, and that's okay. So there's all of these different elements of a session, a distance session, that are a part of just reality of animal Reiki and being an animal Reiki practitioner. When that happens, what you're doing is you are really feeling into your body or hands flowing or something like that as to whether it's a no or it's just I'm just going to move around because I'm an animal and that's what I do. Um, and so that's where you're looking into that intuition, that intuitive nudge around it. When it comes to no's in sessions, really yeses are more common and the no's are pretty obvious. Even if they're wandering in and out of the room, again, it's not always a no. The no is like, no, I am out of here. You're feeling it in your body. The Reiki is not flowing at all. And you just know that it's a no. Like it's usually pretty definite. No change in behavior is a yes 99% of the time. I don't ever like to say 100% because there's always exceptions to the rule. But no change in behavior in animal Reiki, we teach that that is generally a yes. If they're sleeping and they continue to sleep, that's a yes. My cat loves to groom herself, as Danny said. She'll start with a session and she might be sleeping, she'll start to groom, then the session's over and she goes back to sleep. Dogs might gnaw on a bone. Like there's common things like that. They might get playful. There's common things like that that are a part of it all. So um, uh, with this, the no's are pretty definite. Otherwise, you're just kind of allowing the Reiki to flow, allow the animal to do what it needs to do to process the Reiki that they're receiving. Sometimes it can be helpful to have the caregiver decide or describe what the animal is doing. If they're off camera, remind them that they don't need to chase them around. When I've been the client in classes, because like we have uneven numbers or whatever, and so people work on my animals, I've had to be reminded of that. Like, Robin, you don't need to chase the animal around with your phone. It's okay. They can go and sniff around and like do their thing. It's no problem. And so you might need to remind the caregiver of that it's okay that they're sniffing around, doing their thing, coming in and out of the space or going into a different space. It could be that maybe they're going into a space that they might feel more comfortable. Like let's say they're in the living room, but one of their favorite spots is on or under the bed in the bedroom. It could be that that's just where they want to receive it at. That's where they prefer to receive it at because it's one of their favorite, most safe feeling spots. And so that's a possibility too. I've had that happen as a caregiver and as a practitioner. And so that's okay. So sometimes, if you're just moving once, that's one thing. As the caregiver, you don't need to necessarily do that. And also you can ask your caregiver questions. Oh, okay, they moved off camera. What are they doing right now? You can have that dialogue with the caregiver. Even if your animal's on camera, I will have that dialogue with the caregiver. Like I have a black cat. I have a gray cat bed for her. So sometimes when she's on camera, she's hard to see if if she takes a deep breath or something like that, like a big sigh of relief, which is a sign of relaxation for animals. And that can be hard to see. So I might describe that to my practitioner, right? That is practicing on my animal. Or I might have a question. Let's say my hands are drawn to work on my surrogate at their hips. And in that case, like I might ask, oh, is there anything going on with their hips? And so I might ask that question and the caregiver can explain, if there's anything going on with their hips. So there's also that dialogue that can be really helpful in those instances. Now, if you get a no, this is one of those places, again, you get to decide as a practitioner what you would like to do with it. That it could be that you could ask the caregiver, would we like to switch to you? And sometimes the animals orchestrate that. Like, I don't need the Reiki, but my caregiver does. Can you give them the Reiki? They're stressing me out. So that can be a piece of it, that it's actually all been orchestrated to work on the caregiver. I've had it where it's all been orchestrated to work on a different animal in the house. And so that can be an aspect of it. Like, no, this animal said no, but you have another animal, let's work on that. I've had that multiple times. I've had the caregiver dynamic multiple times. And so you could potentially switch to a different being in the house. If that is a no from the caregiver, then one of the other things that you could do is, it depends on how much time you've taken with it, with all of it. I always let the caregiver know in our initial conversation that no's are possible so that they go in with the right expectations. um, you could set up another session if you would like. You could also say, okay, well, I'm going to work on them at 4 o'clock on Thursday and just do a distance session where you're not on video with them, where you're not on any of that kind of thing that takes more as a practitioner. You're just going to do a straight distance session. Usually with no's, it's not like a no, never. It's usually no, not right now. A lot of times things that can influence that. There are people coming home. So if it's, 3 or 4 o'clock and their kids are coming home, that can be a distraction that an animal doesn't want a session during that, like kids after school. If it's walk time, if it's dinner time, if it's all of those kinds of things, those can affect yeses and nos. So if the only time your caregiver can do a session is at 5 o'clock, and that's dinner time for the animal, have them feed the animal slightly early, or do the session if you can 5:30, and have them feed them before the session because that can affect it. Sometimes if Amazon comes to the door and the dog's going to bark at that, it might be like, oh, the Reiki cuts off. Try again once everything is settled down. It might be 10 minutes. That's okay. Try again once the animal is settled down with that. So those are a few things that you can do if it's a full on no. You get to decide as a practitioner what your policies are. Having a policy up front is super helpful because it doesn't have you have to decide in every situation what you're going to do differently. Now, there are times that we make exceptions as practitioners. I am certainly not trying to do anything unethical and like charge people a bunch of money and they don't receive any Reiki. So I am certainly going to work with the people, work with the animals, in order so that they have get Reiki for their animal in some way, shape, or form. So you get to decide how you are going to go about that in different scenarios. If I've driven to a person's house, like if it's in person and I've driven to their house and I am, there's been a bunch of time invested, that's going to be a little bit different than if I'm doing just an online distance session. And it's a part of the reason why distance sessions are so popular in animal Reiki are those kinds of realities of it, that you have a bit more flexibility when you're online if like a no does happen, for example. Um, so again, setting your policies, letting the clients know your policies in advance so that there's no surprises when things happen when you're in the session. That's going to set you up as a practitioner for more success.
Also, typically in an animal Reiki session, if the animal does go away or goes and sleeps in a different room, I end up having a session with the caregiver. So I combine it. And so, if the dog goes away or the horse goes out into the pasture, I continue the session, and it typically is really great for the caregiver as well.
Yeah, agreed. All orchestrated. Okay, I have another question that I want to read. It was a DM. So, in Animal Reiki, we speak about how we shouldn't judge and be open to different levels and ways of animal treatment and ways of caring for them. But how far does that go? What about if we see animal abuse? Are we supposed to step back and say maybe this is this animal's divine purpose? Have had people ask about it, and I don't know exactly the position that the material, the class, the curriculum comes from. Animal abuse can be illegal, and then if we witness this, are we supposed to stand back and not come forward and report it? So the short answer to this is Yeah, no, absolutely not. Animal abuse is animal abuse, and I would 100% of the time report animal abuse. I akin a lot of animal Reiki to kids Reiki, giving Reiki to children. Different parents are going to parent differently, right? And as a person, as a practitioner, if we're um, going to be a practitioner for kids, we might see parenting styles that are different than their own. And even parenting styles that maybe they would judge me for my parenting style, right? Like, I'm like kind of a mid-range gentle parenting style, right? And somebody else might judge me for that aspect. Um, and and so those are the kinds of boundaries that we're talking about. And when it comes to treatment of children, like absolutely, I would report child abuse. There's no if, ands, or but about it, and I would do the same for animal abuse. This is not that, this isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about different styles of animal companionship where, yes, there are things that we are going to disagree with as practitioners, as people, as far as having different styles of animal and human relationships with it. Um, for example, some people um, show their animals, and other people do not agree with that. There might be people that have to, when we're talking about like judgment and things like that, there are people that might leave their horses out of a barn over winter because they believe that the horses should have like that naturalization, but the horses are well loved. I mean, they have shelter and things like that, but the horses are well loved, whereas other owners or caregivers might think that they should be in the barn in the winter. So we're talking about different lines of normal human animal companionship. Um, when it comes to animal abuse, I 100% of the time would report it. There's no gray area for me with that. And so that is a different level than different styles of parenting. And I say that in the way of animal companionship, right? Because our animals are our companions, they're our friends, they're our children, these are sentient beings that are a part of our family. And that's a very different version than having neglect, having abuse, things like that, than different styles of companionship with our animals. Um, so that's kind of what we mean. Now, when it comes to animal neglect and animal abuse, I, as a person, work on trying to stay out of judgment in the way that I don't know people's stories, in the way that I think hurt people. There's those kinds of things that like I try to stay in the higher consciousness version of myself. It's not always easy. I see the animal as a divine being inside, regardless of their spirit or their experience on earth. And I try to remember that. The same as children, I see their divine spirit inside, regardless of their experience here on earth. And I try to stay out of judgment of, I don't know what that parent has gone through to make them be in the position of hurt people. That is easier said than done when I'm in this kind of space than when I am experiencing that firsthand. And I have experienced that firsthand and I have reported it in the past. Doesn't make it okay, doesn't make it legal. It doesn't make it where that's easy in that moment where I am not judging that person. Um, so but that is a different aspect of trying to stay in higher self um, than it is like in the reality of the moment, in the reality of the situation. Absolutely. That's like, how we think of that in kind of that spiritual aspect of ourselves in our paths on this planet. And I try to do that with everybody. I try to do that with humans and animals of earth in general. It's not just that one person. And other people might have a different experience of that. They say, "You're crazy," to me. "You're crazy." I 100% judge that person for being that type of person. Maybe even you came from that type of background and have changed the cycle, have changed the lineage, have changed all of that. And so I also 100% understand that perspective. And um, I understand that perspective, and I, am in that place of like, okay, well, maybe I'm not right in that. Maybe I should have judgment around that and judge the person. So that might be the case, but it's not the case of like, nope, this is okay, and we all have our divine experience, and I'm just going to let this go and be okay with it. Absolutely not. There's no gray area for me in that case. Like as far as if I'm going to report that or not. I am going to send Reiki to the situation. I'm going to try to do what I can to help the situation. So we're talking about kind of two different aspects of animal, and I'm going to use the word like ownership, because I don't necessarily think people who are in that position that do that are caregivers and companions. I think they think of themselves in ownership and dominion. And again, like when it comes to neglect, when it comes to things like that, I do try to not be in judgment, because people have their own situations that can lead to those kinds of things. And it doesn't make it right, in my opinion. And I would report it. And I don't, there's again, not really a gray area for me, but I do try to, maybe a better word is hold compassion for people. Try to hold the frequency of compassion for people. And I try to send Reiki to the situation. And it's hard. There are really hard things on this earth. There is duality of animal companionship. There's duality of the things that people go through and children go through. And it is hard. It's hard to experience. It's hard to see. And when it comes to that kind of stuff, again, no gray area. What we're talking about gray area is a different in parenting styles, difference like in the normal broad range of difference in parenting styles. And when I mean that, I apply it to both animals. I apply it to children, things that are in the normal scheme. There are different parenting styles that people have. To me, that I would not have that kind of parenting style, but it doesn't mean that they're a bad parent. It doesn't mean that they're a bad caregiver. It just means that it's different. And they still love their children. And those are definitely the places that I work on my own judgment around it, with it. And that can be on one end of the spectrum or the other, as far as the relationship that they might have with their animals, the relationship that they might have with their children. And so, I fall greatly more on the gentle parenting style, the understanding, the listening, that kind of stuff. But I would bet that I am not fully on that spectrum in comparison to somebody else. And that they might even have um, that like, oh, I would not parent like that. So, or like when it comes to foods, for example, like we have a certain level and style of foods in our household. But I am going to let my child go to a birthday party and have the birthday cake, and just experience that birthday party in its full birthday partyness. And somebody else might not do that. Now I'm not going to judge them for not having their kid. There's might be a variety of reasons that's the case. And they might judge me for allowing my child to have the birthday cake, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. But those are the levels of things that we're talking about when staying out of judgment of animal human relationship, not neglect, not abuse, for sure. Those things, to me, there's not really a gray area with it. I'm going to send Reiki to it. I'm going to do what I need to do to hold my own ethical boundaries around it, as if it's reporting things like that. But that's what we mean.
This is similar to couples massage. Can you also do couples Reiki sessions?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah. I've not done one either on the receiving end or on the giving end. That's an interesting question because I'm sure as massage therapists, do they do couples massage with two massage therapists
She
usually?
didn't say.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you
I'm
ever?
assuming that's how I've been in couples massage and it was two
Yeah,
different people.
that's what I
So
was thinking. Like how you see it in like resorts and things like that. Couples massage,
yeah,
it's two different massage therapists, right? Usually.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. That's a
Okay.
great idea. I love it.
Yeah, it is a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at like a Reiki share, many times we're, giving Reiki to multiple people. Like, we have multiple practitioners, multiple clients, and then we switch. I mean, in that case, we wouldn't switch. But I think that's a lovely idea. And so, yes,
Yeah. I mean, I've had sessions like with a parent and a child, so it's kind of the same. Okay, this is from Loretta. I work out of a wellness center doing Reiki. I'm starting to do home visits separate from the clinic. How do you set up your pay scale? Do you do 30 minutes, 60 minutes? How do you determine? And how do you figure in mileage?
good question. Um, I think of standard Reiki sessions as 60 minutes. So for me, that would be where I would start as you're building your business. Some people do 20, 30 minute, they might do specials or deals on that. Um, so um, I would say that, just really have a standard. Maybe you have a few different options, an hour and a half, that kind of thing. Or 45 minutes, an hour, like you have different ones and they're different prices. So you could look at what people in your area do. That's one way to kind of start with it as like what's kind of the standard in your area as far as Reiki sessions, or if Reiki's not very big in your area, then look up massage and acupuncture. It's going to be similar as far as pricing is concerned, as far as length of session is concerned. Different places are going to have different standards and different, like, local cultures around that. So, but to me, I think mostly the standard is that Reiki sessions are about an hour. Mine are always an hour and a half, unless I do have a few clients that are an hour, but mostly mine are an hour and a half. Colleen's are mostly an hour. So I just like the extra time for the interview before and then the debriefing after, and have an hour of the actual, you know, I do all my clients now distance, but the actual like hands-on Reiki portion, to have that an hour. So mine are an hour and a half. As far as charging is concerned, that is going to be different based on your location. So somebody that is in LA or New York or San Francisco, Miami, like these expensive areas that have a high cost of living, they are going to be a different price and charge different than somebody who is in Nebraska, where the cost of living is lower. So that is one thing to know, is that you're going to want to do it based on what your area charges. Again, you can look up other Reiki practitioners or massage or acupuncture to get a basis of an idea of that. One of the things that people do with it and when they're first starting out is that they are going to maybe have a certain price and do deals for an introductory deal. So, because it is easier to lower your prices than raise your prices. That's one of the things to know about all of it in general anyway. So there's that as far as your prices. I can't really answer that because it can be so different. Somebody in LA could charge $200 an hour or $200 for an hour session. Somebody that's probably not realistic in Nebraska. It's just the cost that everything price wise is just different there. And so, you might be charging $60 for an hour session. So like that discrepancy can be very broad with it. So look that up. As far as charging with mileage, what I've seen is that mileage within a certain boundary is, and again, this could be different because traffic in different areas can be very different. That's another thing. Like trying to go anywhere in LA that's 5 miles away is going to take you a lot more time than going 5 miles where I live. Right. So, but what I've seen with most people is that they have a certain boundary where maybe it's free and like mileage doesn't cost anything if it's within 20 minutes of where you live or something, that it might be just built into the session cost. And then anything outside of this boundary that you have costs whatever per mileage, or, like 35 cents per mile after that or something like that. Places that are rates that you can get for that. Not all Reiki practitioners are going to have that because of the so many of them just work out of a stable location. There can be traveling massage therapists, so you can see what their policies are. That's a more common one. Also, traveling like makeup artists and hairstylists that do makeup for photo shoots or they do makeup for weddings. Now, the prices on that is going to be a little bit more because a lot of times those are like, they're there for like 3 to 4 hours, right, doing hair and makeup or something like that. But it can give you maybe a good starting point as to what the mileage cost should be in your area, and you can build from there. But again, what I've seen mostly is that you have a certain boundary that it's built into the session cost, and then outside of that boundary you're going to charge per mile. You can also look at what the tracking your mileage for your taxes. You can look at what that cost is. I don't know what it is off the top of my head right now, but you can look at what that cost is and base it on that as well, because you can write off your mileage on like your Schedule C or whatever schedule you use for your business. So you can take a look at that and also base it on that. So track your mileage for that, by the way. It's a business expense.
Well, this is a very common one. Can I use Reiki for weight loss?
Good question. That is a common one. Um, some people say yes, other people say no. So one of the things that you can do is that you can use Reiki for wellness. And wellness means so many different things to each of us. Some people, I always pronounce this word's always so hard for me to pronounce, vehemently. Is that right? um, Sarah, I know you're a teacher. Is that right? Um, I think that believe that it is that you can write your goals down on a note card, give that Reiki every single day, and eventually you are going, or habits that will lead to that. Maybe that's more exercise, maybe that's walking every day, maybe that is shifting your diet, things like that. I think that people really, yeah, the power of intention. Thank you. That those kinds of things and giving that Reiki every single day can help with habits. Whatever that looks like. It certainly can't hurt your process. I'll tell you that. I think it's the same idea of to not expect it to fix anything overnight. And that's the thing, that we all need to have the correct expectations around Reiki. That yes, we have miracles happen all the time. Sometimes it does help with that. But at the same time, I always am making sure that I myself have the right expectations for Reiki, and that I also give the right expectations to clients around these kinds of things, as far as like fixing any level of problem. I do also think that Reiki can help support us in our own self-love, our own diet culture issues. And we've done a couple of podcasts with Marla Mavis Hartman. Go back and look at those. That's something that she really focuses on with it. And I think that that's a place that Reiki can really, really support, because all of that we hold in this culture, with diet culture, with body image, is all a whole can of worms. And people need therapy for that, and Reiki can support that. You can ask Reiki to come in and help you with that, in that self-love journey that many of us take through Reiki, that I think that Reiki brings up for us. Now, that is a place that I think Reiki can really help us, and Reiki can really support us. And when we have intentions around that, it can weave through those layers to help us come to, again, that place of more wellness. Wellness means mind, body, spirit. Wellness means mental, emotional things, and that looks different for every person. Um, and when we come to wellness, sometimes that is weight loss. Other times it's self-love. Other times it is emotional things that we might carry from our past. Other times it's more strength in a variety of ways, but physical strength. Sometimes when we are in this period of, maybe we are fighting through an injury, an accident, or autoimmune issues, like sometimes wellness means helping us to feel better from those kinds of things. So wellness means so many different things to each of us. And I do think that Reiki helps with that. It brings us to wellness. Sometimes that's just helping our nervous system to calm down, which sometimes when our nervous system calms down, it helps with that cortisol. Um, when cortisol is being released from our body, and when not as much cortisol is not being released, sometimes that can help us to make healthier choices, which then can lead to weight loss. So this is a very complex thing. Some people have had a lot of success with it, other people haven't. And so I would say, go into Reiki, ask it its questions. You can certainly, it's not going to hurt to have intentions to help you with this, to write down habits on note cards to help you in support of maybe changing habits or building better habits. Reiki can never do harm. It always only helps with that. And so I would definitely encourage you to see what happens from that. But I think it's more complex than just, I give myself Reiki, I'm going to lose weight. I see a question. Danny, did you have anything to add in that? I see a question in the chat. Okay. So I haven't taught a Holy Fire World Peace Upgrade class for those that have traditional Reiki 1 and 2. Can you walk through that basic outline of that process? Also, are they able to receive a Reiki 1 and 2 manual with just this upgrade, or is it necessary to take the Holy Fire World Peace Reiki 1 and 2 class? Well, it depends. I'm just trying to make sure I understand your question. I'm not going to walk through the basic outline of that process, because the outline of that is actually pretty like, it's pretty involved. So if you go into now, if you're a Holy Fire Reiki master with the ICRT, and you have bought manuals through them, and signed up through their system, you have access. I want to make sure I'm saying this right, because I don't know if that's just if you're a professional member of the RMA or an affiliate member of the RMA. Gosh, Delana, I want to make sure that I'm answering your question right. And it's hard for me to know exactly, because I'm in the LRMT training program, and so I have access to all of just the outlines. And I don't know if you have to be an affiliate member or professional member off the top of my head. This is where we need Colleen. She knows the answers to all of these very technical questions with it. What I do know is that the Reiki 1 and 2 outlines are in the Reiki Master Manuals. And so if you have a Reiki Master Manual from the ICRT, a Holy Fire World Peace Reiki Master Manual, you can get that digitally or you can get that in a hard copy. That has the class outlines that you need for Reiki 1 and 2, and it's in the manual. And in the case of if you have an account with the ICRT, they also might have like 1 and 2 outlines that you can just download, so you can like have them and print them out. And I am unsure if you have an affiliate member, if you have access to those, or if you have to be a professional member. I'm unsure, and I'm sorry about that. That would be a question that you could always email Colleen or email center@reiki.org to find out the answers, or just even look it up. Because they have the different levels on their website of the Reiki Membership Association and what's included with that. So I apologize. I don't know off the top of my head, and I don't want to go in and look at it because that might be distracting. But what I do know is that in the master manuals, they have those outlines and you can go through that. And we are talking about this in our Reiki shares this month. And so last week, and it's now on our YouTube and our podcast, it was published on Thursday. We did talk about some of those very practical aspects of being a teacher and teaching Reiki. And so definitely go back and listen to that one. And that can help you. Okay. Thank you, Jules. I'm going to look at this in just a second. Brochure, logo, helpful articles, forms needed for sessions and in classes. So yeah, thanks, Jules. She put it, you can find it all on reiki.org. She put the affiliate member benefits on here, and then they also have professional member benefits on there. But definitely go into your master manual and look at the outlines. So then, as far as the Reiki 1 and 2 manual with just this upgrade, or is it necessary to take Holy Fire World Peace Reiki 1 and 2 class? Well, if you're teaching Holy Fire World Peace, if you're upgraded to it, I'm just trying to understand if they have traditional Reiki 1 and 2, if you're the Holy Fire World Peace upgrade, when you teach them that, they are taught that is now like their lineage. They can use both, like they can have both lineages where they might use the traditional, Usui, Tibetan traditional Reiki, and they can have the World Peace Holy Fire. Like it doesn't replace their other lineage. It's just an additional lineage that they have, so they could use techniques from both. So if you are that, you can teach that. If you are Holy Fire World Peace teacher, you can teach that. And that would add that additional lineage to them. I don't want to call it an upgrade because not everybody is called to have Holy Fire World Peace only. They might want to have both traditional and both Holy Fire or World Peace with it. So that's why I don't want to necessarily call it just an upgrade. So if you use that manual, that is going to guide that process of the 1 and 2 class being Usui, Holy Fire 3, World Peace Reiki 1 and 2. That's going to guide that process. And also, are they able to receive the Reiki 1 and 2 manual with just this upgrade, or is it necessary to take the Holy Fire World Peace Reiki 1 and 2 class? So if you are upgraded to Holy Fire World Peace, then you would, and that's the style you're feeling called to teach, because that's a different manual than the Usui Tibetan. That's the different style of attunements, where the Holy Fire 1 and 2 class, World Peace 1 and 2 class, is going to be the placement style of attunement, which is that guided meditation. If you are teaching them that, and you are and your Reiki is upgraded to the most recent upgrade, and you're using the most recent manual and manuals, that would then teach them the most recent Holy Fire, Yasui Holy Fire Reiki 1 and 2. So there's that. I think that's answering your question. I just want to make sure that that is answering your question with it. I'm just waiting. It's a little bit of silence because I'm just waiting for the, yeah, okay. So yeah, when you're teaching that, that's what they will learn. If you're teaching the traditional Sui Tibetan style Reiki 1 and 2, you would use that master manual and use those 1 and 2 manuals for them, and they would be in the traditional style. And that would be the traditional, or the, I should say, the physical attunements, where the teacher is, bringing the attunements into the students. So it's just a matter of what style you're using, and what manuals you're using that is going to attune them to the different styles of Reiki energy. So it is a different manual than Yasui Tibetan. It is a different master manual than Yasui Tibetan, but they don't necessarily replace each other. It's just an additional. And we have teachers that teach both. Like they still love the Sui Tibetan style of Reiki, so they teach that, and they also teach Holy Fire World Peace Reiki as well. And so they use the master manual for that and the 1 and 2 manuals for that as well. Okay, I think that answered it. We got there in the end, and I apologize, I don't know off the top of my head what is included in the affiliate and the professional memberships. Yeah. And again, the outlines are in both. So if you're doing Yasui Tibetan or you're doing Holy Fire World Peace, you do have access to those outlines in each master manual. So they are in there for the 1 and 2 class. And those are super helpful. And we did talk about that last week. So go back and check out that recording, because they're super helpful to have a place to start with it. And if you're called to teach them in slightly different orders, things like that, then that's okay. We switch some things around. The important things, and of course, are things like the attunements, the hand positions, things like that that are important. But sometimes we'll switch around, like the timing of things and things like that. But they are pretty complete, and they are a really great place to start as far as an outline is concerned. And we still use that every single class. If we're teaching online, I have one on my desktop. If I'm teaching in person, I have one printed out. Or, you can have it in your manual. I have notes and, highlights and things like that on my outlines that are very, very helpful for me. But the outlines are very robust and super helpful. A great place to start. So. All right. Well, I think that's pretty good, Danny, unless there's anything else
there's one more.
Okay.
It's been a long time since I practiced Reiki, so I feel that I'm not able to focus and feel the energy. What can I do?
Well, starting your practice back up is one thing. Sometimes it just takes time. You could revisit an attunement. We revisit attunements every time we teach. But I will have people that will come to me as a client, as a practitioner client. I will have people that will come to me and just have the session be about receiving the attunement. Whether that's I just realized something. Whether that is a whatever level of attunement that they like. I had somebody that went through the Karuna ignitions, and for 4 sessions, we did the Karuna ignitions. So you can do that as well. And if you're wanting to reconnect in with Reiki 1 and 2, you could have the Reiki 1 attunement. You could have then the Reiki 2 attunement. Or you could just go back and do the Reiki 2 attunement, for example, if you're already attuned to that. And people find a lot of success in that. And whether or not they're trying to connect back into whether or not they're trying to connect back into their Reiki, maybe they're a practitioner and they just feel guided to have the attunement again. That is a very normal practice to do, but that's what I always suggest for people, is that they just go back and revisit the attunement. If you have it in a recording or something like that, you could always do that from your class. That's another way that you could do it, but I always like to have it. I can also do it myself if I want, but if there's a time where I'm feeling really guided, it might be nice to have a practitioner guide you through it. And it's a helpful way to connect back in. And then just practice, even if it's just self Reiki, that always helps us to connect back in as well. Attend Reiki shares. You can practice there. It's another place you can do it, is Reiki shares, and that helps with practice as well. So, okay, I do see this. We'll finish up on this question. People attuned with Reiki use human Reiki on animals all the time, and it helps. Why get attuned to animal Reiki? So the short answer to this, Jules, is that you don't need to get attuned to this lineage of animal Reiki. People have very successful and beautiful animal Reiki practices with just their human Reiki, and it works great. They have their own tools and techniques. They have maybe even learned tools and techniques that use their, Usui, 3 Usui symbols and Reiki energy, or, more if you're tuned to more. So you don't need to. That's the first thing. And we even say that in class. We make sure that we're always honoring all lineages of Reiki and animal Reiki. That's something that's really important to us, and honoring all of the different ways that people practice animal Reiki. I think that the more animal Reiki on the planet is better. So it's always good. Um, One of the things that we say about why get attuned to animal Reiki. First of all, a lot of people are called to it, right? There's a lot about it that there's a calling around it. Um, there is, and maybe they know why, maybe they don't know why, that they're called to take the class. So that is one aspect of it. You might just be called to the energy with it. Um, there are a lot of tools and techniques that we teach in this class. And it was originally surprising to us that it was its own energy. When it started out, we thought that, well, in the history, Sue and Colleen started before they invited Pam and myself to join. But they thought that it was going to just be a tools and techniques class. And it was actually the energy that came in and said, no, there was something kind of missing to the understanding of it, because it took a long time to write. And then Colleen and I were talking to William one day, and he said, well, it's its own energy. And the animals understand its own energy. It came from the divine animal kingdom and came through them. And we're like, oh, it's its own energy. And so from there, that was when the course kind of even we took on a greater understanding of what the course and the energy and everything was meant to be. Was that it was its own energy, was going to have a symbol, and that started that whole process, an attunement process, and all of those kinds of things. And so, but you do learn tools and techniques within the class, right? And tools and techniques that are helpful to people that have been practicing animal Reiki for years. So that's another reason that that people might want to take
I
it.
did take the course with you, and I loved it. And then I had somebody asking me, why they were interested in it, but what was the difference? And so I tried to explain, the energy piece, and it was just added because they were like, oh, well, we have dog walkers that do Reiki on the dog, and they love it, and why take that step? But they were interested, and I was just trying to figure out the best way to explain it
Mhm.
to them, as far as why to take that next step with it. Um,
Well, as a practitioner, it does deepen your skills and your understanding. So that would be one thing that I would say, in the same way that becoming a Reiki master from Reiki 1 and 2 deepens your skills and understanding. So that's one thing that I think is a on the practical end of things. It's going to deepen your skills and understanding as a animal practitioner and even as a human practitioner. And then the other thing that I would say is that one of the things that we have found with our own animals and experienced a lot, which we probably said this in class, is that we do find that some animals respond better to this energy than they do the human Reiki. It's actually more common than you would think. I
That was
had
my
one of my,
dog.
yeah,
My
my
dog.
dog too. Yeah, it's not that he didn't like was didn't he just could take it or leave it before. Like, he didn't have any connection to Reiki. And some animals are very sensitive to it, to the human Reiki. It's like too sensitive.
That
Where
was
this
my dog.
frequency of the animal Reiki energy, we've seen like 100% of the time when people report that they received this energy. And that was a surprise to us. And my dog really taught us about that when we were writing the manual, that was something that we would have never expected to be a part of this, because it's so gentle and because it's so powerful. And then some of the tools, like the hands-on Reiki piece, that's a huge understanding. The consent piece, that's a huge understanding, that even though we are really experienced animal people, and since you took the class, you know, Sue, I mean, she's been working in the animal industry her whole life, and guide dogs for the blind for 30 years. And I'm saying this for the audience that may not have taken it and may not know her. Um, and more animals before that, like her animal experience is literally her whole life. And she learned things from this experience, from this class, like consent. Like, you know, you get Reiki, all of us that are animal people, like, oh, I'm going to give Reiki to my animals. Oh, I need to ask their permission. And that was something that, like, we all learned the hard way, you know, like, and so even just those small understandings are super helpful as a practitioner. But that sensitivity thing is another really big piece of it, that it is gentle, but it's also really powerful and healing. And I actually never knew that this was possible, but I experienced this for myself. And this, I'll wrap this back around. That after I had had a set of seizures, and one of them, I had like 2 seizures and grand mal seizures. So 2 seizures in a row. And I came home from the hospital, and my body was so electric. And first things you think is Colleen put her hands on my feet, you know, sitting on the couch, and she put her hands on my feet, and my body could not handle it. And I didn't know that that was possible, because I believe in its healing so much, that I thought that of course would help, that, yeah, but I was just too electric and I was too sensitive to it. And to me, that's how I kind of equate it to the animals, maybe not electric, but just that sensitivity. And because of the animal Reiki, she had learned, like, oh, okay, so what I'll do instead is I'll just sit next to you and create this zone around you, and your body can receive it as you need. Because that's one of the things that we teach in Animal Reiki. You don't have to have hands on. You can create this Reiki zone, and the animals can gently receive it as they need. And we find that with those more sensitive animals that don't like the human, or not don't like, but don't easily receive the human Reiki. And because of that zone, I was able to receive it. And then after a while, I was able to have kind of that hands-on. Now, not all animals want hands-on even forever, and that's fine. I know my dog never did. He just liked that Reiki zone and received it that way. But it was amazing how much it brought down my sensitivity. And we learned that technique from the animal Reiki. And so she just sat next to me and just, you know, had that zone. And that helped with that sensitivity. And so those are some of the things that, why the tools and techniques help, and why the energy helps, because of those different things. And so that's how I always explain it. And then also I'm the first one to say, yeah, you don't need it if you're not called to it. That's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, Danny, did you have anything to add? I did see you unmute.
Well, I know we have to go, but I was just going to say for me, it was safety. And so, because I was a Karuna Reiki master when I took my Animal Reiki, thinking they're not going to teach much that I don't already know. And ironically, it was an in-person class when it was probably your first class, and I took it, and we were with these horses. And I've never seen these horses, such big, huge, beautiful horses. And I'm not really used to being around horses. And so they just really taught a lot about safety and, well, consent for sure, but safety. Like if you don't feel comfortable, don't go into the stall, or, if it's a different kind of animal. And ironically, the week after that class, I had 2 horse sessions with 2 different horses. Never had done a session before with a horse, and all that stuff I learned in class was way different than what I knew before. So for me, it's safety. That's it.
I was muted. Yeah, thanks, Danny. It's very true. There's a lot of those kinds of things. And then we know the kind of the difference in the energy. So that helps. All right. Well, I think that we'll go ahead now and wrap it up. Thank you all so much. Thanks for the Reiki. I was able to get through it feeling okay. So I appreciate that. And maybe even those people that are listening later that sent it backwards to me. So I appreciate it. But those that are here in this circle, as always, love being in circle with you all. Thank you all for those of you that are listening later. Lots of love to you and great questions around everything. We always love the conversations that we have. Lots of Animal Reiki today, which is really interesting. So yeah, lots of love to you all, and we will see you next time.